What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. A lot going on here with the debt ceiling and potential default of America. Both Republicans and Democrats digging in right now. Republicans telling Mitch McConnell to be stronger on the potential default here. Mitch McConnell faces heavy pressure from the right on the debt ceiling after saying he didn't want the country to default, and Kevin McCarthy was willing to keep the default on the table. Senate conservatives are putting pressure on Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell to hold the line with Speaker Kevin McCarthy and demand that any bill to raise the debt ceiling also include major fiscal reforms. The effort is being led by Senator Rick Scott, who challenged Mitch McConnell for the Senate leader position and lost. Mike Lee, Republican from Utah, Ron Johnson, Ted Cruz, and Mike Braun, who have regularly met with House Freedom Caucus members at Scott's house on Capitol Hill to build support for a debt limit bill with significant fiscal reforms. They are now pressing McConnell to stick closely with McCarthy despite efforts by Democrats to divide the two GOP leaders. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer did just that after Tuesday's White House meeting between President Biden and congressional leaders, accusing McCarthy of being the quote, lone holdout from an agreement to take the possibility of a federal default off the table, which was kind of the case because Mitch McConnell said in an interview, can't remember if I showed that exact interview on the channel. Mitch McConnell said we won't let the country default. But regardless, Republicans are using it as a tool to negotiate. Rick Scott said, if we want to get something done, we've got to support Kevin McCarthy, and then we've got to be vocal in what we believe in. It has to come through the Senate. It's got to take 9 of us to pass to get the 60 votes, so 9 plus the 1 for 10 plus 50 Democrats, 60. We need to be very vocal. We expect there to be a path to a balanced budget. We expect that we get rid of this wasteful spending. We ought to be very vocal about what we believe in. That's what our leadership should be supporting. Rick Scott predicted that Biden would try to get Republican leaders to agree to tax increases in exchange for some spending cuts. I think they're going to try. I think Biden's all in to try to do it. This is likely referring to Democrats wanting to raise taxes on high income earners and also corporations, which Republicans have not been wanting to do because we've seen some of that here in the past. Also, that is possibly on the table for Social Security fixes as well, which would be unlikely to be able to pass in both, getting both of that done, maybe one or the other. Also, you can see here President Biden uses 14th Amendment as leverage in the debt ceiling talks. Remember, the 14th Amendment is, it's a gray area, but they're saying here that the 14th Amendment would be a amendment, a portion of it where the president would technically be able to raise the debt ceiling on his own if it came to that. It's never been done before. Whether or not it would be challenged in the court of law, President Biden seems to think that he could. It kind of goes back to like executive orders where it's one of those gray areas. Like former President Donald Trump did the executive orders where he sent out checks to millions of Americans, unemployment checks where he took the money out of the disaster relief fund, sent out billions of dollars worth, and then it was a question of, well, was this legal or not for a president to do that? And Democrats didn't challenge it, and I said, well, I don't think that they should because I mean these people are hurting. It was during the pandemic, which well, really the pandemic just ended like at midnight, last night, and it wasn't challenged, so it stuck. So again, the same thing could happen here yet again. The White House does look like they're maybe starting to negotiate, though, White House takes signature law off the negotiating table in early spending debt ceiling talks. The White House is drawing its battle lines. As spending negotiations get underway, the White House has conveyed to negotiators that President Biden, the Inflation Reduction Act is off the table, as the two sides have started to say what they will and will not negotiate over. That is one of the several that are off the table, as well as the White House's other non starter items, rolling back student loan debt forgiveness, which the Supreme Court has not given us their ruling on yet. Republicans want that to just be out, even though it hasn't been ruled on yet. White House says, nope, that's not up for negotiation. We're going to wait to see what the Supreme Court says. A campaign promise that remains tied up in litigation. Also, Medicaid and SNAP benefits. Sources familiar with the negotiations said White House officials raised all of these items in and said that these would not be up for negotiations. However, they did say that work requirements would be up for negotiations. I did see that. The White House is willing to entertain a cap on future spending, but for a far shorter time period than the 10-year spending cuts agreements. And they've indicated that the debt ceiling increase will need to last more than 1 year to avoid the scenario playing out again next year. I also seen that the past pandemic C-19 money, that's leftover money, the White House said that that would also be up for negotiation. There's somewhere like $400 billion of that available. Billion, not millions. So that's a lot of money. I'm pretty sure that that's the amount out there. It's really hard to even find how much of that is available because it's all in all different buckets of money and different areas, and like you'd have to lump it all together. So honestly, I don't even think that all of that would be recoupable, because it's like some of it's for schools and some of it's for healthcare and some of it's for hospitals, and like it's all in different places and stuff. So who knows what would be? It's not like they can just say, okay, let's take every single drop back. We'll see. We'll see, right? These are just like the starting lines. Republicans are probably going to say no to some of that stuff, like especially the Inflation Reduction Act. The Republicans like they hate the whole act, but in all reality, there's some really good stuff in there. Like it lowers prescription drug costs for seniors. It lowers the deductible costs for seniors. There's some really good stuff in there. Honestly, if you weren't a Republican or you weren't a Democrat, and you just listed the stuff on paper and handed it to you, and you didn't know what it was, you'd be like, lower prescription drug costs for seniors. That's a good thing. So there's definitely some good things in there. In fact, the VA, the Veterans Affairs, has been doing that for years, So there's no reason that Medicare can't do that. But the problem is it's bundled under a Democrat bill, and Republicans hate it. And there's some green energy stuff in there that Republicans are totally against. And I get it. There's a bunch of things that Republicans hate. But for Democrats to say that the whole Inflation Reduction Act is off the table, Republicans are going to probably absolutely hate that. So we'll see what happens there. Just like Democrats hate that the whole Trump tax cuts were passed under reconciliation, which means Republicans passed it all without any Democrat votes years ago, and Democrats passed the Inflation Reduction Act under Biden with no Republican votes. So kind of, as my father would say, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Each side got to pass a bill on their own without the other party, and each side hates the other's bill, right? So that's kind of the problem. And now they're both trying to undo what the other side did, at least parts of it. So it's a never-ending hamster wheel of Congress. So we'll see. The problem is, honestly, the whole debt ceiling thing needs to go away. It's like a tit for tat thing, and bills have to be approved through Congress anyways. And then there's just like this extra layer of debt ceiling, which banks are literally. I'll show you this headline here. J.P. Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon says banks are convening a war room on the debt ceiling, uh, preparing for an economic collapse, stock market collapse, bond market collapse, and fiscal financial nightmare. That they say that I think it was Moody's Analytics said that up to 8 million people could lose their jobs if we have a default. And my wife was asking me, well, why would that happen? Why would millions of people lose their jobs? And the reason is because if we see this happen, the stock market, bond market could literally plummet, even if it just happens for a day or two, because the full faith and credit of the United States is gone out the window if they can't pay their bills. If anything gets delayed, Social Security payments get delayed, bond payments get delayed, interest payments get delayed, anything gets delayed, or they say, "Oh, we're out of money." That it's like saying, "Oh, well, we can't pay you. You'll have to wait." It's like the full faith and credit of the United States is just out the window, at least temporarily. You're going to see the stock market plummet, the bond market plummet. We're the number one financial system for the world, right? And what's going to happen is people are going to panic. They're going to start selling, and money's going to be wiped off the table for millions of Americans. And when that wealth starts to just evaporate, um, and people see their money in their bank account, or their stock accounts, their bonds accounts, and their portfolios, their and also their retirement accounts, their 401ks, their IRAs, their pensions, all these things go down. Small business owners, medium business owners are going to lay off people. When they see their money go away, they're going to lay off people. Corporations are going to lay off people. When they see, I mean, what's the first thing corporations do when they start losing money? They cut staff. We're already seeing it from large corporations now cutting tens of thousands of people. Well, if you see a quick economic collapse and billions of dollars get wiped off the table from Wall Street and bonds and stuff like that, that's the first thing they do, especially small and medium-sized businesses. I mean, if they can't make payroll, that's what's the first thing they do. And that's why the banks that are collapsing, this is like a big deal, because if they can't get their money out of the bank, how are they going to pay people? How are they going to even pay their rent and stuff like that? It's a pretty big concern, especially for people on Social Security and stuff like that. So I'll keep you up to date here. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you haven't yet, make sure to click the subscribe button down below and the bell icon so you don't miss out on any new videos that come out here every day on our YouTube channel at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's completely free to do so. Thanks for liking and sharing these videos. Here's some videos you should watch next. Here's a really big video on what just happened with the border. Really big video to watch there. Or Americans are stunned at what just happened here with both Biden and Trump. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.